Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tracy Landau, the founder and president of Marketplace, a strategy, research, and branding firm that specializes in nutrition and lifestyle brands for people and pets. Food. It's grown and harvested, processed and procured. It's transformed into the ingredients that go into the products you know and love. Food connects us all, and when it's healthy, accessible, sustainable, regenerative, and delightful, it betters the lives of people and their pets. After 2 decades of branding food technology, ingredients, and CPG brands, we've done it all, and we have more than a few stories to share. Join us as we talk about what goes into making a meaningful and successful food brand. This is Food Full Circle. Hello, we're back again with our second episode. Today, we're talking about research and actionable insights, a topic that I'm very excited to unpack. If you're an entrepreneur or executive launching a nutrition brand for people or pets, I cannot think of a better episode to listen to than this one. In this episode, I sit down with Nicole Hill and John Copeland, an absolute dream team when it comes to research and insights. I host a panel-style interview to discuss common myths and misconceptions in research, the types of testing and research we conduct at Marketplace, and how it can be an invaluable compass that will guide your next innovation. Welcome to Food Full Circle. This is episode 2, and I have 2 guests this time. Nicole Hill, Executive Director of Strategy, and John Copeland, who is our research strategist. Nicole's been with us a decade, and John, 4 years.
That's right.
We're here today to talk about research and actionable insights, a very, very important topic for a brand firm like ours who seeks to solve problems, create opportunities, and then really just in life, right? So why don't you guys just say a little bit about what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah,
And maybe with a little accent on research and insights.
of course. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for having John and I here with you today.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, I've been with Marketplace for almost a decade now, and I've had the awesome opportunity to work with so many brilliant people here, John and you, of course, being 2 of them. And a lot of what I do day to day is drive strategy, business and brand strategy informed by custom research and the insights we glean from that for product development purposes, new product launches, product line extensions, brand development. What position should a brand take to have the most successful chance in the market? And really working collaboratively with our fantastic creative team to develop new brands, rebrand brands that are looking to do something different in the market, and inform innovation for the variety of companies in the food, beverage, supplement, and pet space.
Thank you again, Tracy, for inviting me to be on the podcast. As you said, my name's John. I am the research strategist here at Marketplace, and I lead all of our research projects. So we do a lot of qualitative research on to help support brand strategy, product development, package design, really everything that we do here at Marketplace. Research touches it.
Thank you both. They are the dream team for sure. Yes, so the topic of research and actionable insights was one that we selected because it is such an important topic, one that is crucial to the success of the brand strategies that we create for our customers.
Absolutely.
And sometimes one that there's a tendency sometimes to cut out or maybe ignore. If there are budget issues, sometimes it's like, well, let's maybe not do the research. And what do we say to that?
Do the
Do
research.
the research.
Do the research. It's so critical, and we're going to talk about why. And we are going to talk about research in the context of people and pets. So to that end, the humanization of people and pets. Let's talk about pets. It's a nice way to get to know us and to you. So tell us a little bit about your pets. You've introduced yourselves.
Well, I've
Yeah.
got a dog named Frances.
I love Frances.
Isn't she sweet?
She's
She's the
sweet.
sweetest.
She's the sweetest. She's a high energy girl.
She is.
Also got a cat named Lionel, and he's a little lion.
Oh. My favorite thing. Yeah, well, I'll talk about Francis in a minute.
Yes,
And
Francis
Nicole
is amazing.
has
I have
a
a dog
dog.
named Omar.
Yes.
He
I love
is
Omar
a
too.
German Shepherd and a bunch of other things all mixed in one big lovable pup,
Like a teddy
and
bear.
like a big teddy bear.
Yes.
And he
Love them.
is definitely one of the favorite four-legged creatures that we have in our family.
Yes. And sometimes they come to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to be able to bring the dogs into
Francis loves
work.
to be a business dog.
Yes. So what's one of the most human things that your dog or cat has ever done?
So Frances is a smiler. She loves to just wear a big grin
I can
whenever
attest
she's
to that.
happy. Yeah, so you've seen it.
She shows all of her teeth.
Yeah, she's a
Seriously.
smiler, and it's one of my favorite parts about her personality.
Francis
Mhm.
also has some sick dance moves. If we can just acknowledge that for a second.
She does. She
Yeah, she does.
does.
She does this like twerk thing. Like
Yeah, she gets down.
she
Yeah.
does. Francis is a dancer. What about Omar?
I would say Omar is the most human in his expressions. He definitely gives judgy stares when he doesn't agree with what we're doing,
Yeah.
and also very sympathetic stares when he knows we need a little extra love. So
Yeah.
we love Omar.
Aw. Well, this is a thing, the humanization of
Absolutely.
pets. So out of some of the bodies of research that we're asked to do, and keep in mind, we also do proactive research.
Mhm.
This has been an area of interest for us for many years and our customers in the last 12 months, especially, even though it's been a trend for a decade or, 12-ish years, something along those lines. We've been pursuing it a long time, but we've really gone deep, right? What are some of the most interesting takeaways from that research that we've found?
I think that a big part of our job at Marketplace is to um, turn brands into heroes. And with any hero journey, the hero leaves and goes to seek something that's of great value and then come back with that thing of great value. And I think for us, that thing is the insights, that actionable insight that gives our clients a competitive edge. And the research gives us a map. It lights up a path for us to follow to get to that insight.
So, actionable insights. You mind if I grab onto that just
Sure.
real quick? Explain that a little bit. For some, they may not be exactly sure what that is.
Yeah, so for actionable insights, that's where we're taking not just information, not just data, but we're looking at it from a place of learning and also through our unique lens here because we do have exposure and experience in food, beverage, supplement, and pet, and there's so much crossover among those categories.
That is so true.
So the insights piece is not an actionable piece is not just saying here's what you should know, but here's what you should do or what you could do with what you know. What is the action to be taken that could improve the potential, the opportunity of your brand, of your product to make sure you have the most successful product launch possible, with whatever market you're entering.
I think some examples of that I can think of is we've discovered that, particularly with like pet parents, they prioritize the need state for this kind of supplements that they buy, and they associate particular ingredients with those need states. So, what our research is able to do is to um, help identify what those need states are, which helps them in their product development, and what ingredients are going to matter the most to our target consumer, what those ingredients mean to that target consumer, and what attributes of the brand that are going to resonate the most.
And I think one of the things, just Tracy, speaking to what you were talking about before with the confluence of human trends and human nutrition and pet nutrition trends, what we're seeing is really tracking both on the need states, like
Yeah.
John was talking about, what are the benefits that the products offer, but also what are the ingredients people see value in or seek. So folks are seeking probiotics increasingly for
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Yes.
They're also seeking probiotics for their pets.
That's right.
And not just the ingredients and the need states or benefits, but folks are also interested in what we've kind of dubbed functional indulgence. So we saw that emerge in gummies in the human space, soft chews in the pet space. So now we're looking at, well, what's the next wave of that? And that's what research can really tell us. There's a lot of great market research data in terms of what's driving sales, what's driving revenue. We can tell the volume that certain product types take up in the market.
Hmm.
But what we can't tell from that is where it's necessarily going. And
Right.
that's where we're able to do a lot of the custom
Yes.
work that indicates things like some of our recent research in the human supplement space indicated that yes, chocolate is an opportunity for functional foods or supplements in the human nutrition space, but ice cream was actually pretty close behind that. So I think that's one of the things to look at from a functional food standpoint. Is that a format that people would be interested in? Or in the pet space, um, we've seen soft chews on the rise for a long time,
Yep.
functional ingredients in treats, so functional treats. But our more recent research has indicated there's also an opportunity for functional food toppers that are in more of an indulgent gravy like format. So we're seeing a lot of these more decadent
Yeah.
formats really track with what people are saying they would like to see in the space that maybe doesn't quite exist yet.
Is there something recently that you've uncovered through research that was like one big standout relating to this dynamic?
I think ease of use and convenience is one of those things
Convenience.
that's just
Mm.
uh, it's a deal breaker for a lot of pet parents. If they view a product as going to be hard to use, if it's going to be messy, they'll just outright avoid it.
Mhm.
So that perception of convenience is really a critical factor, I think, in their decision making.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And then what plant-based movement has that showed up?
It has, but
Yeah.
I think that there's still a little bit more skepticism in the pet space because pet parents so typically tend to associate certain protein choices
that's right.
with
Mhm.
what their pets enjoy flavor wise, but
Mhm.
also there is a high value placed on both protein and fiber. And I
Yes.
think that's where we're seeing, interesting mixes and blends of things like, instead of just having a beef treat or a chicken treat, it's maybe duck and carrot or turkey
Mhm.
and sweet potato. So combining plant
Yeah.
and traditional animal proteins in a treat in a product to bring both that high fiber and high protein um, associations into it.
So this is all actionable insights. These are the things that Marketplace would be able to help with because we're constantly reviewing these markets.
That's right.
We are executing the research for our customers. We have the industry and consumer lens. So it helps us to be able to make these recommendations that are quite detailed and specific to our customers. So, John, remember the research we did
Yeah,
in 2019
right.
uh,
COVID changed
prior to
everything.
COVID?
Yeah.
Yes, in the supplement space. That was our target industry.
Hmm.
And then COVID happened. And then in June 2020, we retested
Right.
and found that CBD, for example, was not a focus at
Right.
that
But
point,
immunity
but
was,
immunity was
and probiotics with
and
it.
still is. Yeah.
And people were doing other things
Hmm.
to things with their diet
Hmm.
to improve their
Yes.
immunity. We found all sorts of interesting behavioral insights.
Yes.
Um, in just a year's time, just a
Yeah.
year had passed, and there were
Yeah. And
tremendous changes. Yeah,
not even.
not even a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's just you have to keep your finger on the pulse of what it is that your target consumer believes, what they're doing, what they're aware of. All of those things go into the kind of purchase decisions that they'll make.
Well, that keeps it interesting for all of us.
Keeps it very interesting.
And then our research is online. We've gotten into some video
Right, right.
research.
Yeah, we've gotten to some really interesting qualitative methods
Mhm.
that we've got some new capabilities to use video to capture qualitative responses. You'll get 4 times as much content uh, in a video capture than you would in a written
Mhm.
open-ended question response. You know, oftentimes cost can be can be a barrier to doing qualitative research because it's just so labor intensive. It's involves getting people to all show up at the same time at a focus group facility,
Yeah.
and
Right.
well, with technology, we can address a lot of those issues, make it a lot more cost effective for our clients to do that.
Awesome. Technology has helped us so much. And who would have thought? I mean, now just the fact
Right,
that people are working at home, like in hybrid models or full
right.
time. Okay. Well, what's the big myth? Let's talk about research itself.
Yes.
So, what's one big myth about research that you'd like to dispel?
Generational labels. This
Ah,
is a
yes.
big one. Generational labels, we're talking about things like millennial,
Yes.
boomer, Gen X. These
And
are really kind of imprecise ways of talking about age groups.
generalizing it,
Right.
stereotyping
You
even.
know,
Yes.
and by some standards, I'm fall into Gen X. By others, I'm a millennial. And
Mhm.
with each of those carries its own set of biases that we bring to the table when we think about them. So, generational labels, they're kind of falling out of favor in social sciences. And I don't know, we just found that it's more helpful for us to um, segment our target consumer by their behaviors, by the
Mhm.
things that they do,
Yep.
and we find that really helps us um, narrow in on a ideal target.
And those
Yeah.
generational labels and targeting based exclusively on demographics before you really get into the behaviors can actually
Mhm.
be really problematic and
Yeah,
uh, guide
Mm.
brands in a direction that's not at all in alignment with their goals. So we've
we
had customers that have made some assumptions about who their audience was,
yeah,
and luckily we were able through research to say, hey, this is what you thought you thought your audience was, but
hmm,
Yes.
realistically the prime audience for your product that your product's best going to serve and whose values align with yours
Mhm.
is this other audience over here. And if you
Ah, yeah.
built your brand around the audience you thought you should be speaking
right.
to, you might
Mhm.
miss a significant opportunity.
We had a client come to us with a probiotic, an innovative probiotic product,
Mhm.
and they had a very narrowly defined idea about who their ideal consumer was, what they did, their gender, their age, all of it. And we said, well, let's take a step back and survey just the probiotic consumer, the people who are taking probiotics at least a couple times a week. And what we found is that um, by doing so, we can cast a wider net,
Mhm.
but still have a targeted positioning for the brand.
Mhm.
So we found that that was much more helpful. And we don't want to just throw demographics out. That's not
Sure.
what I'm saying.
Right.
Um,
Makes sense.
I Our approach is to um, identify that behavioral segment, and then within that, we can start looking at things like age,
Mhm.
psychographics, um, income, other demographics, and that'll help us with our positioning, our targeting, our messaging.
Well, and with that, it's like you
Yeah.
don't want to ever say our product's target audience, um, they're the millennials or
Right.
Yeah.
they're Gen X or whatever, because first of all, that's such a huge group of people
Mhm.
that have different needs,
Yes.
different priorities, different values. And so when we can start from that place of
Yeah.
behavior, like John's talking about, that's where we can really align on what those needs, values, and um,
Mhm.
purchase intent might be for someone looking for another product in a similar category or with a similar benefit. And it also, in both the pet and the human space, we really see supplement consumers as early adopters. So, usually, if you're
Definitely.
talking about a new functional ingredient or a benefit that's framed a little bit differently, um, that's where you're going to see the groups of folks who are already relatively proactive about their nutrition or their pet's nutrition. They're already doing some amount of research in terms of what product should I buy, investigating what's out there, and looking into things. And so that's really where you're also going to have some signals from those groups about what might be coming next in even the food and beverage category.
What we're seeing recently is more interest in probiotics as an
Mhm.
immunity focused ingredient. And so these are things we've just got to keep our finger on the pulse of and be aware of because it's a changing environment.
It really is. Give us an example of a research project where bias came into play.
I think a lot of our projects do because so many things
Yeah.
start with certain assumptions, and we've even had them on the product side. A client that we were working with on the brand front, they had made some tweaks to their product formulation before they scaled up, and said, "Hey, we think it has a pretty strong scent to it." And this was a pet
Mhm.
supplement, a soft chew. They said it has a pretty strong scent to it. We're concerned that pet parents might be turned off when they're opening this jar and have to give this product to their pet, and it might
Mhm.
keep them from repeat purchase.
So this was
So
something internally that they had
yes.
experienced. They were worried about the scent.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
had that concern and they communicated that to us and said, "Hey, we talked about, how might we test this? And we said, well, that's a, valid thing to want to test,
Yes.
certainly. But if we're going to already be sending these prototype products out, why don't we go ahead and do it in the prototype packaging,
Mhm.
and also ask multiple questions about the pet parent's experience with the product. So,
Mhm.
what's their impression of the packaging in terms of
Yeah.
what price point, what level of quality, what level
The
Yeah.
of
whole experience of
That
the
yes,
product.
experiential
the
information is
Yeah.
so valuable.
Yes.
and with
That
that,
makes
we
sense.
were able also to say what's their personal experience when they open the product,
Mhm.
but then when they're in the presence of their pet, how does their pet react to it? Because we
Yeah.
are willing
Yeah.
to compromise a lot for our pets. So
Yeah.
we might say, "Oh, we don't really like the smell of this pet's treat or food," but if they love it, like that's what brings me joy, and I'm
Yes.
willing to kind of move past that. So in that research, we found out that
Mhm.
almost no one mentioned anything about the smell of the product. So that
Interesting.
was
Oh.
great, but over 30% of the pets spit the treat or spit the chew out. So
Oh.
over 30% of the pets spit the chew out.
It's a
And
big
if
number.
you're talking
Mhm.
about a product that you're about to sell on Amazon, where we all know so many folks
Oh,
shop by
yeah.
reviews,
Yes.
Hmm.
if you buy this product and no matter what great ingredients it has, what great benefits it
Yes.
offers,
The
uh,
reviews will kill it
your
if it's
pet
yeah.
Yeah.
won't consume it. One, you're not going to buy it again.
Right.
Two, you might write a review saying, I would have loved to give this to my pet, but they just wouldn't eat it. And then it's going to impact others'
Yep.
behaviors in terms of their willingness to buy it.
Mhm.
So we were able to flag that for the customer, and they were able to address that formulation challenge before they scaled up their product production, their packaging,
Wow.
labels, all of that, and really proactively address that.
Hmm.
And this was, a big product launch for them. This was their first product launch in the pet space. So
Mhm.
it was really critical to the company that it was successful, not just for that product, but also for the other products they intended to launch thereafter. So
Sure.
being proactive about that and again, testing our own
That's
assumptions,
right.
testing our own biases, because yes, if you give it to your pet and you are part of this company that's, trying it out and you're really excited giving it to your pet, or like, oh, to get my pet to eat this, I have to wrap it in something. That's not a controlled experience in terms of
Mhm.
um, how that pet's going to receive it because they're also picking up on all of your nonverbal cues. So that allowed, people who maybe didn't have that intention behind the product to give it to
Mhm.
their pets and report back, what their experience was.
And so, just can't stress how important it is to test your stuff before it goes out there.
So the thing I love about all of this is not just data collection. And I'm just
Hmm.
thinking of, sometimes some of the inquiries we get is, I have IRI data, I have scan data,
Hmm.
or I have general industry or consumer um, research
Hmm.
pieces. The data is interesting and important, but it's just one narrow view of a
Right.
situation.
It doesn't tell you exactly how do I shape my messaging? How do I position this? What's my strategic angle here? What's going to be my
Yeah.
competitive edge can go into the market? Just knowing the market size of something doesn't tell you that. So that's really
Right.
where we come in, and um, we get into what the consumer is aware of, what they're thinking, what they're doing,
Hmm.
and in that process, we're able um, to come back with that actionable insight
Right.
that gives them that edge.
Well, and one of the things I love about it too is we're not just coming in with all of the knowledge, which to be fair,
Hmm.
Marketplace as a collective has quite a bit in the spaces we serve due to the nature of the
Sure.
strategy and creative work we do and the promotional work we
Hmm.
do. We really have deep knowledge in that space. But we also use research to test our own theories and
That's right. We
assumptions.
don't know it all.
We don't.
Right.
And, we
we don't
have
we don't want to make our own assumptions that could be a negative as well. We want to make sure that we're being objective across the board.
And we've even used it to inform our packaging design, where
Absolutely.
Mhm.
we've developed packaging design for a product that, in one case I can think of, we were building a brand from the ground up, and with the intention they wanted to directly challenge a market leader in their space,
Mhm.
and so we developed the strategy
Mhm.
around the position that would best support that. our team developed the best packaging concepts. They were so compelling and distinct and differentiating, and with factors woven in, like this has to perform in pet specialty, but also on Amazon, and how might this all come together? Well, we tested that packaging concept that the client selected against those category leaders. And while it performed well, we felt like it could do better. So we took that information and what we saw back to our team and said, hey, on this quality and this quality, it didn't quite push over the top of the competitor in the way we'd like. How might we address that? And our creative team, one of the things I love about them is they're strategic thinkers. They're
Yes,
not
they
just
are.
creating things for the sake of creating beauty, although they do fantastic, beautiful design.
Beautiful designs.
But they really think about how it connects with folks on a personal level. What emotions does it evoke? What sense does it convey? Is this a very science forward product? Is it a warm and fuzzy product? What do we want? What emotional connection do we want to make?
Yeah.
And so the team pushed the design further. And then when we retested again with a new panel of folks, not only did it outperform the category leader in terms of the key values we wanted to hit on, but it was also performed as the first click people would make when we mocked it up in an Amazon experience, a store listing or product listing experience, not only over the category leader, but also over a leading global brand that also plays in that space. So it gave not only the brand a lot of confidence in terms of going to market with that packaging design, but then we use a lot of that data to inform retailer pitch presentations.
That's
So
right.
then when you can filter the data by, we had a large enough panel that we could filter it and still have a really sizable sample size. And we were able to use those insights to inform a retailer pitch presentation to make the case for why this product should be added to store shelves when we're talking about pet specialty retailers around the U.S.
Yeah. So this is great. So we're talking B2B, business to business, business to consumer, business to everyone, B2E. We're talking various different industries, all of these different lenses we can wrap around this, including digital versus, brick and mortar. And so that's the whole full circle viewpoint
That's right.
that Marketplace offers.
Hello, podcast listeners. I'm Jeremy Huggins, Director of Naming and Verbal Identity. Over the course of 12 years at Marketplace, I've had my share of hits and misses when it comes to predicting trends. For example, a few hits from the early 20-teens. FODMAPs, the sparkling water takeover, personalized cat nutrition, and, without apology or shame, a few misses from the same time period. The rise of cat jerky, that's jerky for cats. The disappearance of authenticity as a brand driver. The final death of QR codes. Those QR codes got me good. So, predictive insight-wise, what's next? As a collective of 25 food, pet, and wellness junkies, what a solid oxymoron, by the way, wellness junkie, we have a lot of ideas. But speaking very personally, I can't stop thinking about fungus. I'm about ready to call this decade the fungal 20s. From functional beverages to the mycelium revolution, to yeast innovation, to psilocybin-assisted therapy, fungus is very much among us, and I am incredibly excited about its potential to dramatically shape the next decade. Cats, QR codes, fungus, fun. It is fun. But beyond the genuine fun of trend prediction, why do we engage in this or any type of predictive insight? Primarily because it helps our partners imagine and identify product development and market gap opportunities. But there's another valuable benefit. Less tangible, but just as important, we do it because it requires and fosters collective problem solving, intellectual agility, and tactical creativity. It helps ensure that we stay open to new ways of doing things. Perhaps an illustration. You're at your favorite grocer. You have your eye on a kombucha, or a juice maybe, or even an alcohol-free beer, whatever your mood. You are an educated consumer, so you pick it up and turn it over to check out the ingredients. It's looking like a winner. until you get to 2 words, some unintelligible phrase you've never seen. It genuinely looks like the name of a lesser-known Roman emperor, or a spell at Hogwarts. Dacryopanax spatularia. At best, you're immediately Googling. At worst, you're putting that baby right back on the shelf.
Ew.
This very real scenario came to us from the marketing team at a specialty chemicals company in Europe. They had a branded ingredient, this innovative natural microbial control agent, aka a natural preservative, that prolongs the shelf life of beverages. Super exciting stuff, except for one little roadblock. This ingredient is derived from Dacryopanax spatularia, an edible fungus, referred to in the scientific literature by several names, few of which you would want to run into on the back of a package. I won't share those names here, but I will let you know that I take great satisfaction in having ensured that the phrase jelly mushroom never sees the back of a bottle, can, or carton.
Ew.
So, what does this have to do with actionable insight? Here is specifically what this company asked us to do. Help them come up with the common name for this branded ingredient. In contrast to the brand name, the common name is the generic descriptor meant to ensure consumer understanding that shows up in the ingredients list. Think brand name Splenda, common name sucralose. Or if you saw the logo for BioPerine on the front of your supplement, you might see it listed as black pepper fruit extract on the back. As a European company, they wanted a partner in the US who could help assess existing options and come up with new options that would both satisfy regulatory requirements and appeal to consumers in North America. As you can imagine, there is no template for this. We help our partners with all manner of product launches, naming projects, and consumer market research, but this was so specific as to be unprecedented. We were delighted by the challenge. First, employing a mix of research, collective experience, and hypothesis, we developed a rigorous, useful way to evaluate a long list of options, assessing these common name options through the lens of 4 criteria. Clarity. Is the name at all misleading regarding its source, for example? Compatibility. Linguistically, how well does the word reflect function, features, and benefits? Currency. Does the word reflect relevant macro shifts like transparency and clean labeling? And connotation. Does the word or any portion of it carry negative connotation? Are there cultural or emotional concerns like the ick factor? Then, we used this 4-pronged assessment to eliminate some options and recommend others to proceed with. We added a few options of our own for consideration based on this data set. The next task was to determine how many names to move into the consumer testing phase of the project. Now, having developed countless surveys and other forms of custom research over the years, we knew that timing and budget were going to be the primary consideration for how many names we could test. So we were able to bring our experience and some specific parameters to our partner and guide them in making a decision on the final number of options to test. Why spend time telling you that? Because it's the type of detail that in the larger picture would be easy to just skip past as sequential logic. To do this, you must first do that. And in some ways, yeah, it is. But we know that this is one of those steps where projects often get hung up in countless meetings and email back and forth between marketing and C-suite and other decision makers. An important part of what we offer as actionable insight is anticipating such concerns and preemptively offering guidance and something akin to project therapy to help make sure things stay on track. This is a very specialized internal form of actionable insight that ensures that things go well. So, after agreeing to a final set of common names to move forward with, we knew that in order to get the quantity of data we needed to ensure the quality of data we needed within the confines of the timeline and budget we agreed to, we would need to find a new way to test these options, which resulted in our searching and negotiating for the use of a new testing platform. I'm getting excited again just telling you about all this, but I will spare you the rest of the details. The summary is that we set up a testing method, developed and programmed surveys, analyzed the results, delivered those results in a digestible format, and made our final recommendation to our partner. They agreed with our recommendation. The relevant regulatory authorities approved our recommendation, and we're confident that consumers will accept this recommendation. A win all around. All of it built on actionable insight. We are really proud of that work. We predict good things for this ingredient, and I raise a glass of naturally preserved juice to it.
So, do we have an example that you'd like to give on like the different types of actionable insights? I know there's like lead gen and there's
Yeah, I can think of some real great success stories for our clients where we've conducted a really comprehensive survey, spent a lot of time thinking about the target consumer, and gone out and found out what do they believe, what are they doing, and from that we're able to inform white papers, which have been excellent tools for lead generation. Having that custom research for the white paper makes it so compelling and so interesting. It's something that our customer has that no one else has. So it's not information that's already out there, but something new and compelling. We're able to use those data in pitch presentations, in just even internal decision making. Some of those insights from just that one survey can be extremely valuable. So I think that's something we've done really well, is helping our clients derive just a ton of value out of even just doing one research study.
we get an inquiry and someone wants to talk to us about research. Walk us through that process.
I think the first step is always we want to understand what is the question that they're
Yeah.
wanting to answer, or what is the problem or opportunity they're facing. For us, usually the question that they have usually begets more questions. So
Yes.
it's a very curious endeavor.
Yes.
We bring that to the table and really want to understand the central focus of what we're hoping to get out of it, and not necessarily the result that we're expecting, but
Yeah.
what are we intending to inform? Is it a new product development, a product line extension, a brand position, a promotional effort? Is it a retail channel question? Should we be looking at club or food, drug, and
Mhm.
mass or pet specialty
The media
or
preference.
yeah,
Should we be on LinkedIn? Should we
yeah.
be on Instagram?
So this is
YouTube?
different. So you manage this much like a brand project, just a brand strategy
Oh, yeah.
project that we do for a product that goes to market or a new business.
Absolutely. I think for us, research and brand strategy, business strategy all go hand in
They
hand,
do,
because
absolutely.
as much as we can say, oh, here's what we think your distinct position is and could be, and that's valid, there are nuances that it would be irresponsible for us to just make an assumption based on. So while we could certainly get to a certain place based on our own knowledge and experience in the category, the nuances that I'm talking about are things like, okay, if we're in a food category and this product that's already on the market is redoing its packaging, and we have to help determine the hierarchy of claims that go in packaging, we want to know, do people care more about a fiber
Mhm.
notation on the PDP, on the principal display panel, or prebiotic? Is it something where the just 2 calories per treat for a dog treat is more important? Or is it that it's big flavor in a small bite? Or is it both of those things? And that also helps inform our creative team when we sit from a strategy lens, we're able to say, these are the most important things we have to convey on this package, because it's not just about the words, but also the positioning, the
Right.
design approach, and all of those things. And I think, we always try to come from a place of not presuming what the answer is. Of course, we'll have some grounded theories, but we want to be surprised.
Yeah.
We want to find things in the data that are new to us, because
Yeah.
that means there's probably
That we're onto something.
Right.
yeah, a seed of
We're onto
inspiration.
something bigger. So what are some of the assumptions that customers or potential customers have when they ask us about research?
I think in addition to the demographic piece that John talked about, it's really the concept of qualitative and quantitative data and
Yes.
what they think it's used for.
Mhm.
So I think one of the misnomers is that they're two separate things. And yes, while they can be, we can also ask qualitative questions in a survey that's primarily capturing quantitative data. While it does take quite a bit of coding to go through
Yes.
that, it in some cases is definitely worth it. One of the ways that we prefer to design research when it's digging into an area where it's a totally new frontier is to start with a smaller respondent pool and do qualitative surveys, or not surveys, I'm sorry, and do qualitative interviews to really, again,
Right.
overcome those biases, make sure we're not just looking at it through our own lens. And that also is a great place to uncover opportunity. And then based on that, design the long form, broader survey panel in terms of the quantity of people we're
Right.
asking the questions to that gets at more of the quantitative insights. And both of those things together really make a rich data set that informs strategy. And I think the thing in all of what we've talked about, thus far, is really that research um, is not the end all be all. It is not the one singular answer.
Yep.
It's information to make a more informed decision. It's asking questions on the front end to potentially mitigate um, pain or challenge or hurdles that maybe you could
Yes.
have easily avoided had you just gathered a little bit more information on the front end. And in many cases, it can save time, it can save money, and it can
Mhm.
inform a much stronger position. It can allow brands to go to market with a much stronger
Mhm.
position than if they had just gone based on their own assumptions. It shortens the runway essentially.
We frequently look into is we want to know like what are the deal breakers for the target consumer? What are the things that will cause them to categorically exclude consideration of a product? So we find those things are just as important as what will make them consider the product.
That's a great lens to apply to like plant-based, for instance.
Mhm.
So when we look at the decision-making process, or someone in the plant-based spaces, you want to know, are they first looking for a plant-based option, or are they looking for a flavor, a format, a recipe? And then when they're making their decision, cost, nutrition, sustainability, packaging, how are those things coming into play and in what order of priority?
Yeah.
I think that's also something that's really important to consider when we
Interesting,
look
yeah.
at data. It's not just, do people care about this or is it important? But it
Mhm.
is, what is the relative importance of
Mhm.
each of those things to the other things that are considering in their decision making process?
Yeah.
Right.
And that informs everything. It informs your packaging, your messaging, um,
Mhm.
any kind of design execution. It informs everything from on a strategic level.
Speaking of packaging testing,
Yeah.
I was involved in some research for a sandwich brand
Mhm.
that was offered for decades at the convenience store level. And there was an opportunity to be in retail. And so the company just offered that same product at retail with no packaging evolution of any kind. And it did not do well in retail. Reason being, as John, you've mentioned earlier,
Right.
you have to know who you're selling to, who's your target audience. The target audience at this major retailer was not the same target audience as in the convenience store.
Different needs, different
Different
values.
needs, different values, different preferences. At the convenience mart,
Mhm.
having a window in the package that showed the food product inside was important.
Different experience.
Different experience. At retail with bright lights in a store, that window did not show the product very well, but a beautiful photograph on the product, which is what we tested and discovered, made all of the difference in the world. So we made beautiful packages with the hero artwork on it of the sandwich. With some suggestions on, like, add lettuce and tomato. The lettuce and tomato, the green, and the veggies were in the background. Beautiful. Made all the difference in the world. And so they were able to perform better with those insights, and those assumptions that we talked about earlier being kind of dangerous
Right.
came into play and really
Right.
crimped sales and really caused them
They
to
could
have
have
to take
avoided
more
that if they had,
emergency
yeah,
action, right?
right.
It's knowing your customer.
Well, and the upside of that
Yeah.
too being not just taking the emergency action to defend their shelf space, but if I recall correctly, I think didn't they end up like actually getting
Yes,
more
more business.
product
Yes.
picked up in the store because
Yes.
not only was
They
their
did.
brand revitalized with the awesome
Mhm.
packaging work the team
Yep.
did, but they also were able to then
Prove success.
bring
Yeah.
that those data points in from that consumer
Mm-hmm.
testing to communicate to the retailer, like, not only do we go this extra mile to fully redo
Mhm.
our product packaging, but we also tested it and here were the results.
So let's talk about the work that both of you have done on innovation driving research, and that is escalating for us, excitingly so. We've done a lot more of that work recently, but just tell us a little bit about innovation as it relates to research.
Well, one of my favorite things about the research we do that informs innovation is the research that we do at Marketplace for to inform our team, all of our
Ourselves.
projects, ourselves. It really
Yeah.
helps Marketplace build our IP
Mhm.
in many cases, but also just it accelerates the ability at which we can go into a project, and also it allows the research that we do in specific product segments, in specific markets to be uh, started from a place of already having a level of information and insights that is beyond what maybe we would have had otherwise had we not been doing this custom research. So most recently, we did a pretty significant survey to um, supplement consumers across the U.S.
Mhm.
And we used it to inform some of our speaking engagements on consumer trends, as well as we can apply it to our B2B efforts, our consumer brand
Yeah.
efforts, and it's everything from what ingredients are people driven by, yes, what
Mhm.
need states, but also getting into the nuances of things like language. Is someone more likely to consume a product that's for general wellness, a multivitamin product, an immunity and gut health product? What combination of words and the positioning of something, because there are many ingredients that could inform a
Yeah.
product to any of those purposes. Like, how should you position a product to, one, capture market opportunity, but two, distinguish yourself in the space? Because there's a balance that from an innovation pipeline standpoint you want to strike in terms of uh, opportunity size, but also distinction in the market. And that's really exciting. I think formats are
Yeah.
always a really exciting
Always.
Yep.
place to see what's growing and changing, because we're of course familiar with things like gummies,
Yes.
but beverage is a very rich space for
Mhm.
functional ingredients, and from a formulation perspective friendlier than a lot of other CPG food products. So that's a space we like to see, okay, well, what types of beverages? Let's not just look at
Mhm.
beverage as a whole, but is it functional teas or
Mhm.
coffees or sparkling drinks?
Mhm.
Is it soda? What might that look like? So when you see
Mhm.
brands like Poppy in
Yes.
the prebiotic soda
Mhm.
space, seeing what's already out there and then seeing what other opportunities might be adjacent to that in the
Mhm.
beverage space that a brand like Poppy could extend into, or that another brand may be wanting to enter the functional beverage space. What might they set their sights on? And really following consumer demand and consumer interest,
Right.
following that lead can sometimes really inspire some new and exciting things. So I think the innovation piece, we've done everything from informing a new product
Mhm.
development from scratch,
Yep.
or helping someone position, maybe they have a product in mind, but they just weren't quite sure how to position it. In the pet space, we had a client who said, hey, we created these tiny treats. They already had a line
Mhm.
of products in the pet space, in the pet treat space, but these were different because they were smaller and therefore lower calorie. And originally they said, we want to go to market with these as a training treat. And we thought, okay, training treat, that makes sense, but that's a pretty narrow opportunity in terms of the duration of a dog's life in which they're being trained. It's usually not an everyday, all day enduring thing.
Sure.
The occasions are limited. And then also there's the facet of like, well, why else might someone want to give their dog these tiny treats? Maybe it's a small dog.
Mhm.
Maybe you're someone
Yeah.
who likes to treat your dog frequently
Yep.
throughout the day, but don't want to maybe
Yep.
overindulge them.
Overindulge. Yep.
And then there's also, the palatability piece for dogs who are picky eaters. You can sprinkle them in or on your
Mhm.
dog's food to add a high level of palatability, or to celebrate for special occasions. So, um, in this case, we said, okay, well, when we do this research from a positioning standpoint,
Mhm.
let's look at it from the lens of perhaps it's a training treat, but we
Mhm.
also want to look at it through these other angles. And ultimately, what came out of the research and through the
Right.
insights we applied to it was okay, it actually makes sense to have the same product positioned
Mhm.
as a frequent treat, so a tiny treat, a training treat, and a topper. And that you can have this treat that serves all of these purposes in
Mhm.
one bag, and
Yeah.
it ended up working really well. And then, of course, our creative team did their
Yes.
amazing work on the packaging,
Package is really
and
neat.
it got
Yeah.
picked up in both pet specialty and food, drug, and mass, which is a pretty unique
Yes.
dynamic
Doesn't
in the
happen
pet
often.
space for,
Yeah.
especially for a brand that's not one of the, the major brands in food already.
Yeah.
So that was a really exciting win, and something that they saw as really a stepping stone to growing their product line and brand, and making sure that each product met the need of the audience, but also avoided cannibalization of other products that were in other sub brands within their line.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about finding those gaps that are out there, and
Yeah.
that's where um, um, having our applying strategy can really help drive sales, introduce new products into the market, do all kinds of wonderful things.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've helped our customers make a lot of decisions by providing that actionable insights that lead to the intelligence that they use to make determinations about um, brands, line extensions, innovation, package design, product type. We're It's pretty limitless as to the types of questions that we can help our customers answer, and we're really curious. So we receive a project, and the project is um, budget aside, best scope ever, which would
Whatever
be,
we want it to be.
what do you want it to be? Yeah,
Oh,
what would
wow.
what would
Wildest
the
dreams.
most wildest dreams sort of project for research? What would that be like, John?
So there are some really cool retail simulation technologies that are out right now.
Simulation. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's they have these big screens where you can recreate a like a walkthrough experience of like a convenience store or retail shelf space, and you can put literally anything on the shelves, and you can use it for um, competitor comparison testing, anything you want to do with your package testing. You could do it right there and have the consumer experience it as close to what. I mean, the only way you can make it more realistic would be to actually make a store
Yeah.
and
And
stock
follow
the
people
shelves.
around, which would
Yeah,
be super
and that
creepy.
yeah, I think it's so cool. It's something I would love
Wow.
to do. Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, technology is really it's changing
It sounds like it.
the face
Yeah.
of market research
And
and
insights. Yeah.
and insights, and so we're able to get really really close now to what that consumer's experience is with in the retail environment, or maybe with unboxing, with just using the product,
Mm.
and from there we can tailor our communications and tailor our strategy to really speak to those experiences that we observed in our testing.
Mm.
There's just so much you can do right now, and so
Yeah.
I think
So,
the game,
to do it that way.
yeah, the qualitative methods game is really changing in an
Yeah.
exciting way. For example, like with some qualitative methods, people can do these things on their own time. So if we want to learn about what they think about maybe a video,
Mhm.
well, it's something they can watch on their own time without having to interact directly with me.
Yeah.
They can then record a video response to tell us what they thought about that video, give us
Mhm.
some really rich qualitative data
Yeah.
without necessarily me having to prompt them. Now, the advantage of having a moderator
Yeah.
would be that I can ask follow-up questions in
Yeah.
real
Pull
time.
information
Yeah,
out.
we can
Yeah.
probe.
That makes sense.
Like, we find something interesting, we can probe on that a little bit
Mhm.
more. So my thought is that why not do it all?
Yeah.
Why not have
An integrated approach.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, because that
As
way
with
you get
anything. Yeah.
the most complete set of data that you could hope for.
So at times customers or potential customers approach us and they're either working with a market research firm or they're considering us alongside a market research firm. So market research firms are great. They have a
Mhm.
very specific thing that they do. So can you share with our audience what is the difference between a market research firm and what they have to offer and what Marketplace has to offer?
I think our real sweet spot is understanding the consumer, um, helping our clients target the right consumer, and then understanding what that consumer is aware of, what their attitudes are, and what they're doing, what their behaviors are, and uh, having that approach is something that I think is kind of unique that we do. Um, so we're very, very consumer oriented, even in our B2B work. And so I think that combined with our in-house expertise and our just absolutely amazing design capability, um, those things all kind of come together in a way that makes our insight offering, I think, really, really unique for the categories we serve.
I think a lot of it goes to also that why that we
Mhm.
talked about earlier. So when we look at market research, a market research firm might share what percentage of supplements launched last year um, featured medicinal mushrooms as a primary ingredient. Um, that's based on sales data, scan data, register,
Mhm.
and how project products are coded. What we're looking at that would be complementing what that market research does. So it's definitely a complementary
Yes.
Mhm.
effort. Is we're looking at what people believe they're consuming, which is
Mhm.
not always the same as what they are,
Hmm.
Yes.
and how they identify those things. So in our recent supplement research, we asked how many folks um, consumed a product with that contained a medicinal mushroom ingredient in the past 12 months. And I think it was something like 8%. We then separately asked a question: which of the following have you consumed in a supplement in the past 12 months? And we specified specific medicinal mushrooms:
Hmm.
lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps,
Mhm.
etc. And collectively, the audience, I think it was a significantly
Bigger.
greater
Yeah.
number
Yep.
Yeah, I would
than
guess that.
those
Yeah.
who noted medicinal mushrooms. So a
Right.
lot of it also
Mhm.
gets into language
Yeah.
and what
Yes.
do people associate with things. And even if you see on some of the social media comments on
Mhm.
products that contain lion's mane, for instance, people will
Mhm.
say, you know, how can this be vegan if it contains lion's mane? And it's like, well, it's not the actual mane of a
Main.
lion.
Right.
Yep.
This is a mushroom.
Mhm.
But there's also that gap in awareness, and it identifies a need for education,
Yep.
awareness,
Mhm.
and promotion. But also, it helps to identify where maybe there's some growth in a market that
Mhm.
might not have pure, true scan data to build those um,
Yeah.
insights off of, because
Right.
some of those things are purchased in different locations than your traditional food,
Mhm.
drug, mass, club, and specialty retailers. They may be purchased in smaller shops or from a chiropractor's office or things like
Mhm.
that,
The
a
brand website.
naturopath's office that may
Mhm.
not have scan data being reported. And even
Hmm.
from an e-commerce standpoint,
Yeah.
a lot of that data, the big firms are looking and actively trying to find ways to capture that information in a way that's meaningful to their customers, because everyone wants to know. Yes, I want to know what's happening in the pet space at Petco and PetSmart and Pet Supplies Plus and all of those other,
Mhm.
pet specialty players, but I also want to know what's happening on Amazon and happening in the direct to consumer space, because
Mhm.
while there's a lot of desire to be able to go direct to consumer, it's still a very small portion of the
Mhm.
overall e-commerce ecosystem. So we want to look at things like that and also be able to filter, okay, when we are looking at that direct to consumer audience, or when we are looking at that club shopper, what are their values? Because their values as a club shopper who purchases X, Y, and Z products may be very different than someone
Right.
who is purchasing on Amazon or direct to consumer or from an independent retailer. And getting at those nuances, that's part of,
Mhm.
I think,
I mean, these are
the
behavioral
exciting,
subsegments. Yeah.
yeah, the exciting insights that research can help uncover. So whether you're, when you're asking someone about their medicinal mushroom consumption
Mhm.
versus actually asking them about lion's mane, you're going to get different answers, and that goes to what people perceive is not necessarily always their reality, but we also need to meet them where they are and
Yeah.
communicate with language.
Mhm.
I think where we're able to um, offer that compliment is we can help get really clear on what the consumer's perception is, and from there build out a compelling strategy.
Right. So what a market research firm has to offer and what we have to offer are, again, complementary, side
Yeah.
by side. We're not,
One won't
we don't
replace
do
the
what they
other.
do, right? And we don't do what they do, but we can work together, right? We're all about finding the research and insights that you need with this passionate, curious team that asks the best questions ever. So, on that note, thank you, John, and thank you, Nicole, for joining today. This was an exciting episode 2. Lots to know about research and insights. A very exciting topic that informs pretty much everything that we do and should inform pretty much everything our customers do, right? In a world that's, I'm picking words that you both said too, ever changing.
Right.
Thank you for making it to the end of our second episode of Food Full Circle, a podcast brought to you by Marketplace. To make sure you don't miss an episode, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please share it, tell a friend, and consider rating and reviewing us. And most importantly, if you're bettering the lives of people and pets and would like to understand your customer better, we'd love to work with you. Email us at hello@market-pl.com. We'd be so excited to discuss your next project over a discovery call. Until next time, I'm Tracy Landau.